Kai never thought his life would change in a single moment. One instant, he was walking home through the quiet streets of his city, and the next, everything went dark. When he opened his eyes, he wasn't in his room. Or even on Earth. He was lying on a smooth metallic floor, cold against his skin. The air smelled strange, sharp like metal and something he couldn't name. Soft lights pulsed on the walls, moving as if they were alive. Above him, shapes hovered that defied description, glowing, translucent forms that seemed aware of his every move. Kai tried to move, but his body felt heavy, almost as if gravity had changed. Panic bubbled up, but he forced himself to stay calm. His voice came out shaky when he whispered, "Hello? Is anyone there?" No response. Then a sound unlike anything he had ever heard filled the room. It wasn't words, at least not in any language he knew. It was communication. Shapes shifted, light flashing rhythmically, and Kai realized they were observing him. They were intelligent. And somehow, he understood them not with his ears, but in his mind. You are awake. Observe. Learn. Comply. Kai froze. Did they just speak inside my head? He wanted to scream, but the words died in his throat. He was completely at their mercy. Moments later, the room shifted. Walls melted away like liquid, revealing a massive chamber filled with strange machines and more of those glowing forms. Some were tall, others tiny, but all seemed focused on him. He noticed a device nearby, a helmet of sorts, with thin strands stretching out from it like roots. Before he could step back, the forms moved in unison and placed the helmet over his head. Immediately, his mind was flooded. Images, memories, thoughts that weren't his own streamed into him. He saw stars being born, civilizations rising and falling, beings living for thousands of years. But most of all, he saw Earth, his home, through a lens he didn't recognize. He was no longer just Kai. He was something more, part of a greater mind, yet painfully human still. Suddenly, the helmet released him. He gasped for air. He wasn't hurt physically, but he felt changed. The aliens, or whatever they were, circulated around him, examining him. He realized their authority wasn't just power, it was absolute control, an intelligence so vast that it dwarfed his own. A voice returned in his mind. You have potential. But potential must be tested. Survival is the lesson. Kai didn't know what that meant, but he understood one thing clearly: he had to obey, or risk being destroyed. The next hours, though he couldn't tell if it was hours or days, were a blur. He was moved through corridors that twisted and bent in impossible ways. Gravity shifted, rooms expanded and contracted, and the glowing forms spoke to him constantly. Every moment was a test, every thought measured. Then came the first trial. Kai was placed in a chamber filled with holographic simulations. On one side, a lush Earth-like world teeming with life. On the other, a planet ravaged by war, fire, and despair. The voice in his head asked him to choose which world would survive. He hesitated. Every choice felt like a lifetime. Then, instinctively, he reached for the Earth-like world. The chamber pulsed with light. He felt the aliens' approval, but also something else. Concern? Curiosity? You value life, they communicated. But can you lead it? Kai had no answer. He didn't feel like a leader. He felt like a pawn in a game too big to understand. Days, or maybe years, passed. Time had no meaning here. He learned their language fully, not with words, but with thought. He saw the structure of their civilization, a harmony between technology and mind, unlike anything humanity had achieved. And slowly, he realized something extraordinary: they were waiting for him. For what, he didn't know. Then, during one quiet moment, the truth hit him like a bolt of lightning. He had been chosen, not as a servant, but as a representative of humanity. His actions, his decisions, even his thoughts, were being tested to see if humans could be trusted with knowledge far beyond Earth. Fear surged. Humans weren't ready for this. We fight among ourselves, we destroy our own world, why would they trust us? The aliens sensed his fear. Doubt is natural. But potential must overcome fear. One day, the chamber doors opened to a view of the universe Kai had never imagined. Stars stretched endlessly, connected by lines of energy he instinctively knew were alive. The aliens gestured toward it. Lead. Or fall. Kai's mind raced. He didn't feel ready. He barely understood their technology, their ways of thinking, their very perception of reality. But then he remembered Earth, his home, fragile and small, yet full of life worth saving. He made his decision. "I will try," he whispered, though he didn't need to speak. The words reverberated in his mind. The form shimmered in approval, and suddenly, he was not just Kai anymore. He felt knowledge flow into him, not just information, but understanding. He could see the threads of life, the energy of civilizations, the balance of power. It was dizzying, overwhelming, and terrifying. And then, the chamber changed. He was no longer inside it. He was floating above Earth, seeing his planet as the aliens saw it, beautiful, fragile, full of untapped potential. "You will return," the voice said. "Your test begins. Humanity's survival depends on your choices. Remember, authority is not power over others, but responsibility for life." Kai's eyes snapped open. He was back in his room. Sunlight spilled through the window. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. He felt a presence inside him, a quiet reminder of the test he had passed, and the responsibility now resting on his shoulders. The world outside carried on, unaware of the vast intelligence watching them from the stars. Kai knew he could never go back to his old life. He was changed forever. And though fear lingered, so did hope that humanity could rise to the challenge, if only he guided them carefully. For the first time, he understood what it meant to be beneath an authority far greater than himself. And for the first time, he realized, maybe humanity wasn't so powerless after all.